Welcome back to Steel City Sports, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the most disappointing team in the National Football League for the 2025 season. And that, of course, is the Baltimore Ravens, who are currently sitting at a record of 1-3. They're third right now in the AFC North. They're racked to the gills with injuries. Their defense might be the worst I have ever seen a Baltimore Ravens defense look, and maybe Father Time might have claimed Derrick Henry. So this is all the stuff we're going to be talking about in today's video. And let me just say up front, as a Steelers fan, I'm not trying to be malicious about this. I'm not trying to take a victory lap. Even though the Ravens are my team's biggest rival, I think I've been overall pretty supportive of the Ravens. I'm a Steelers fan. I don't try to hide that on this channel, but I try to be objective as I can when I talk about these topics. So don't take this as like a Steelers fan is gloating on the fact that the Ravens are falling apart. I just want to look at this from an objective NFL fan perspective, because right now this team is treading on disaster. And this team right now, it really reminds me of the 49ers from last year. I think that's a perfect comparison because in 2023, the 49ers were one of the best teams. You could argue in the regular season they were the best team, if not second best, only to this Baltimore Ravens team. And then the next year in 2024, plagued by injuries, everything basically went the wrong way for them. Even though they were projected to get back to the Super Bowl like they did in 2023, they were the favorite in the NFC going into last year. And basically everything fell apart for the 49ers, mainly because of their injuries. They won 6 games. They were probably the biggest disappointment of last year. That's what we're seeing this year with the Baltimore Ravens. This is the season from hell. Basically, outside of Lamar Jackson having like a season-ending injury, and I know he's hurt right now, we're going to talk about that, but outside of Lamar having like a season-ending injury, this is like the worst-case scenario for the Baltimore Ravens right now. I think it is a legit time to hit the panic button. So we're going to break this down. Let's start moving into why they're such a disappointment. And we all know why. A lot of people were picking this team to win the Super Bowl. Not me. I picked the Chiefs. I went with the boring pick of just the Chiefs. I still think that it's the Chiefs game. I know the Chiefs are 2-2 right now. That's a different conversation. But this kind of felt like Baltimore's year. I personally predicted the Baltimore Ravens to win 14 to 15 games. That's how confident I was in this Baltimore Ravens team, because when you just looked at their roster going into the year, this was arguably the best roster on paper in the National Football League. And, you go back to last year, their defense was nowhere near as dominant as it was in 2023. Particularly their pass defense was absolutely atrocious. Their secondary was getting carved apart. And so what did they do in the offseason to address that? I actually think that they made correct moves. I thought they made good moves in the offseason to go ahead and address their secondary concerns, their pass defense. Most notably bringing in Jair Alexander when he's healthy as an all-pro corner, and also getting one of the best players from this draft, at least I thought, in Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia. So, my biggest concern from the team last year was the secondary. I thought they went out and heavily addressed it, kind of similar to what the Eagles did. In 2023, their secondary was pitiful. What did they do that offseason? They went out and drafted 2 rookies and brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So I thought that the Ravens were kind of copying that blueprint of the Ravens. Hey, our secondary is losing us games. Let's go out and aggressively address that by getting an all-pro corner, by getting one of the best players in the draft in Malachi Starks. Through 4 games, that has not been the case whatsoever. I could have not been more wrong about that, because right now the Baltimore Ravens rank 31st in pass defense. So their defense is just as bad as last year, if not a little worse. There's only one team in the NFL right now that is worse at defense, and that's the Dallas Cowboys, which is understandable because they just gave up their best player, Micah Parsons. That is not the case with this Baltimore Ravens team. This is a unit loaded with star guys, with Pro Bowlers, all-pro guys, with tons of money being thrown at this team, high-end draft capital guys. They rank 31st in pass defense, and they also rank 31st in run defense. So they don't do anything right on the defensive side of the ball. And I can't remember the last time I said that about a Baltimore Ravens team. They're so similar to the Steelers in the fact that they put such a large emphasis on the defensive side of the ball. This has been a highly respected respected defensive team since I've been watching football. And right now, this defense is absolutely putrid, flat out garbage right now. It's the second worst defense statistically in the NFL right now. Only the Dallas Cowboys are worse. Totally unacceptable. You know, you can't win the big games when your defense is that bad. You literally would have to have a historically great offense from the Baltimore Ravens, and clearly the Ravens' offense is good, but it's not historically all-time great, and that's exactly what they would need to overcome the woes of their defense right now. And I want to look at the injuries because, like I said earlier, that's the comparison to the Niners last year. The Niners had such a big fall-off last year because so many injuries piled up. That's what we're starting to see with the Ravens, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. You know, your best defensive lineman, Matabuke, he's out for the year with a neck injury. And anytime you mention the word neck and injury in the same sentence, that fucking starts flashing red alert scary for me. You know, you do not want to fuck around with a neck injury. I mean, again, as a Steelers fan, looking at someone like Ryan Shazier, looking what happened with him. He had a neck injury. He never played another snap of football. So that scares the shit out of me for that guy. Roquan Smith has been banged up this year. He's going to miss, a lot of time. Kyle Van Noy, I know he's old as dirt, but he's been a very productive player for this Ravens team. He's hurt. And now Lamar Jackson's hurt. Like, that is the final nail in the coffin. Now, I don't think it's a season-ending injury. He will be back, but I haven't looked at the timetable. Any game you're without Lamar Jackson, I think you are going to lose this year. Any game that he does not suit up, you will lose. And that's something I kind of overlooked when I did my Week 5 predictions yesterday because, I didn't know the severity of Lamar's injury. I didn't know he was out for this game, so I picked them to win. But I'm going to revise that now because obviously Lamar's not playing. And it stems to the defense because, like I just said, in order for this Ravens team to overcome their dreadfully bad defense, they would have to have a historically great offense to make up for the woes of the defense. If you don't have Lamar Jackson in there, you don't have a fucking chance to win any game. I don't give a fuck who you're playing. With how bad the defense is, you need Lamar out there playing at an MVP level to just keep this team afloat. So any game Lamar Jackson misses, this Ravens team is going to lose. And moving on to Derrick Henry, who was such a massive piece of this team last year. Derrick Henry was, arguably the second best running back in football. Everyone was giving Saquon his flowers last year. Derrick Henry's numbers weren't that far off from Saquon last year. Derrick Henry had one of the best years of his career last year. It might be time. It happens to all great players in every sport. We all know Derrick Henry was kind of defying the odds last year. Anytime a running back gets over the age of 30, it's inevitable. And I hate to say this because Derrick Henry has been one of my favorite players for years now. I think Father Time might have claimed Derrick Henry. He's clearly he's not the same player. He's not the same player. Right now, through 4 games, Derrick Henry is averaging 71 yards per game. That's it. 71 yards per game. And he has 3 fumbles. I think his entire tenure in Tennessee, that might be the amount of fumbles he had. I don't have it right in front of me, but this is a guy who historically never fumbled, and now he has 3. And those fumbles critically cost them games, particularly the Buffalo game. The fumble killed them. So you put all this together, these injuries, the defense being so bad, you can't rely on Derrick Henry. Now Lamar's banged up. I think this is the year where the Ravens kind of take a step back. It's not unheard of for these great teams to kind of take a step back. We've seen it happen with all the great teams. Like the Tom Brady Patriots, there was a decade there where they weren't competing for Super Bowls. They weren't going deep in the playoffs. You look at the Saints with Drew Brees, there was a big gap in there where they were just kind of mediocre. And I could see the Ravens start to maybe go down that route, similar to the Niners. I know the Niners have a 3-1 record. I think as the season goes on, the Niners are going to start to fall apart. They've got a real mess going on there, but this is about the Ravens. I don't know what to do with this team, with how dreadfully bad the defense is, with Lamar missing time. They still have to play 5 more playoff teams in this year. So if you just count those as L's, just given the fact that their defense is so bad, a playoff level team should be able to beat them. That right there just automatically puts them at 8 losses because they already have 3. So if you put the 5 with that, that's 8 losses right there. So I think best case scenario, they're 9-8. And I don't even think that that's possible because you're going to be without Lamar Jackson for the next couple of weeks. So I think it's almost impossible right now for the Baltimore Ravens to be a playoff team this year. And if you would have said that just 4 weeks ago, you would have been called a fucking idiot and you would have been laughed at because this team looked so good on paper. But it's falling apart, and I don't see a real quick fix for this team. So that's my thoughts on the Baltimore Ravens. I do think that it is time to start questioning John Harbaugh's job. That's something that I've done for a long time. People have said that I'm too hard on Harbaugh because I'm a Steelers fan, and it's just, Yinzer bias. I don't like Harbaugh, but I don't really know what John Harbaugh brings to the table. I really don't. He doesn't call plays. He's more of a CEO type head coach, and it seems like his ineptitude has directly led to the Ravens losing in big moments. Particularly, I always point back to this, that 2023 AFC title game against the Chiefs in Baltimore. They were favorites in that game. They should have won that game. They were a better roster than the Chiefs that year. They had the best defense in football, and they blew it because they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They did not know what they were doing. And so I think going forward, I would get rid of Harbaugh without a shadow of a doubt. Harbaugh would be gone. I don't know what to do, though, because the defense is so expensive and it's not producing. You guys let me know, especially if you're Ravens fans. Like I said, I'm not trying to be malicious with this. I'm just trying to point this stuff out. Like I said, the Ravens were a team that I was extremely high on. I predicted to win 14, 15 games this year, and to see them at 1-3 reminds me a lot of the Niners from last year. So let me know your thoughts on the Baltimore Ravens this year, and is there any light at the end of the tunnel? Is there a way they could maybe right the ship? I don't think so, but we'll have to see. So stay tuned. If you made it this far in the video, appreciate you listening. Please like and subscribe.